loving ourselves, self worth plays a key role. To discuss this further and to dive into the topic, we have invited Humaira Nasim, all the way from Dubai, who is the founder of coaching service and consultancy called Dream Weavers. And inshallah, she will be talking to us further about self worth and self acceptance and how it can help every one of us in increasing our potential as a human being. Humaira Naseem, Salamu Alaikum, and welcome to our day.
Walaikum salam, Varisa.
How are you?
Walaikum salam, Varisa. Pleasure joining you.
Pleasure to have
Happy
you.
New Year to you.
Thank you so much, and I'm very blessed. Happy new 2022 to you too. So we're starting the 1st of January 2022 with this episode on self-worth. Why did you select this topic?
Why did I select this topic? I believe this is something that is important to us for us to recognize ourselves from deep
Yeah.
within, rather than looking for external validation. We
Mhm.
need to go deep inside ourselves and recognize our true self. And I believe that's something that is overlooked in our society.
Definitely. And often self-worth is confused with self-esteem, which is something totally different. So when we talk about self-worth, what does it refer to?
Basically, self-worth is how you value yourself, how you
Right.
see yourself. And uh, I believe that the world is a mirror to you, and whatever
Hmm.
you see in the world mirrors you back. The way you feel, the thoughts you have, they formulate your reality. So, self-worth is respecting yourself for who you are. But
Right.
if you have attached your self-worth with things that are not meaningful, that do
Hmm.
not bring fulfillment to you, a time will come wherein you will start losing your worth because you are looking at from the lens outside of you.
Can you give an
So
example so
it is
we?
very important.
Right.
Yeah, for example, there are different
Mhm.
ways to, as a human being, we
Yeah.
have this need, which is a very important need, to be
Mm.
accepted, to be
Yes.
heard, and to be seen. These are
Yeah.
three very important needs that we have. And if these needs are not fulfilled,
Mm.
we tend to lose our worth in the eyes of our own selves. And
Right.
as an example, let's say if we have attached our self-worth to, there are many things that we attach to. There
Hmm.
can be achievements, the job title, the
Hmm.
work industry you belong to, the
Yeah.
education that you have received, the
Mhm.
possessions that you have. So if you have attached your self-worth to material things that are outside yourself,
Yeah.
you will go to, you will be in that race, one high
Hmm.
after another, one
Yeah.
achievement after another. So that will deplete you, but you won't be fulfilled from inside.
Right. And does it differentiate from one individual to another individual? Could it be like really low in one and really high in another? How do you determine that?
Definitely, definitely, because that is how you view yourself as. So it
Hmm.
depends. We formulate our reality through our thoughts. The kind of
Right.
thoughts we foster in our mind defines our
Hmm.
reality, right? So if we think good about ourselves,
Yeah.
if we keep on repeating these positive affirmations to
Hmm.
ourselves, then we are going to, we are going to feel positive emotions, and then our behaviors will follow suit, right? But if somebody is in the negative space and he is in a mode of comparisons, he is in a world of duality or relativity, and he is, with every comparison, he's pulling himself down, he won't
Mm.
have positive thoughts about himself, about his image, right? And
Yeah.
the self-talk that he would be doing would be negative, and that's what would be formulating his reality. So that it depends from person to person, because what are you feeding in, what are you feeding into your mind is what
Hmm.
matters.
So does it depend on your circumstances and the kind of environment you live in that will boost your self-worth? Or you mentioned negativity. What if you're in an environment, whether it's a workplace or family environment or anywhere that you spend most of your time with, or the type of company you spend your time with? What if that influences your self-worth?
Yes, see, every factor is important. However, you need to understand that you don't have to be victim of your situation. Whatever the
Yeah.
circumstances or situation is, you you have to learn to navigate through it. Let
Mm.
not the water come inside the boat, right?
Yes, definitely.
Let just sail through it. So it's easier said that than
Yeah.
done, but you you need you everybody see, if the self-worth, why I want let me link it with our origins, right? Let's go
Yes.
back to our history of origin, right?
Mm.
We
Yeah.
have been given self-worth not by people. We have been given self-worth by Allah, right? He has given us that self-worth. We have we were worthy. The angels prostrated us, right? They in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? There was
Yes.
one being who did not, and that was Iblis, right? And what
Yes.
was the reason?
Arrogant.
The reason was comparison.
Mm.
The reason was comparison. When you compare, you are in a space of relativity, right?
Yeah.
This being is better than me, which means I am less worthy. Is that
Hmm.
what Iblis went through, right? And having not seeking forgiveness for his arrogance or for his, because there is a fine balance between self-worth and arrogance, right? The other end is
Hmm.
arrogance. When you think too highly about yourself, you fall into arrogance, and that's what
Yeah.
he fell into, but he did not ask for forgiveness, right? So as a revenge to to the being that humiliated, because of whom he was humiliated, he had to take revenge, right? So now in this world, when like the first event that occurred, that happened in Jannah, that we call the Adam's apple, right?
Yes.
The mistake that we did in Jannah, and then
Hmm.
the second revenge that Iblis took was the story of Cain and Abel. And both,
Yes.
if we look at both the stories, it's this constant whisper that you are not good enough. You are less worthy. You are less worthy, so you were shooed away from Jannah. You were
Hmm.
less worthy, so your other sibling got you he was the favorite one. You are less worthy. So this is the origin of this feeling that bugs us, and
Hmm.
it's the constant chatter. If we entertain it, it goes on in our head. If we wear that lens, uh, if we wear the lens of Iblis, right?
Yeah.
So every now and then in our situation, we are going to go through circumstances where we will be dealing with relativity. It's the story that we feed into our mind is
Hmm.
important.
Yeah. Yeah. But isn't it like some form of distorted
Does
self-image
that
because
make sense?
it is quite the opposite of what the reality is? For example, you gave a brilliant example of Iblis refusing to prostrate before Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, or Cain, Qabil killing his brother. All these things, it's just like a distorted, dysfunctional mental state that would make you do something as horrible as this. um, so my question to you is, Humaira, how can you create a balance between reality and your perceptions? Because often you see that people, their perceptions of reality is different to what the reality actually is like.
See, the world we live in, the reality is very relative. You know, your reality is different than mine. There's no
Definitely.
absolute reality that we go through. And the reason for that is because the difference of perceptions, the difference of backgrounds, the difference of history that we have. So
Right.
the beauty of this world is that there are so many versions of reality around us, and it is
Mm.
through our perceptions. And
Yeah.
the balance is accepting the perceptions of everybody around, not just your own.
Right. Yeah.
Because as human beings, we possess a limited perception.
Mm-hmm.
We are limited in perception as human beings. And everybody's experiences, their backgrounds, their knowledge, they combine together to form a collective reality or a collective intelligence. So we just
Mm.
cannot be arrogant and say, no, my perception is the right one, yours is not. So we need to
Right.
be understanding of that fact.
And does it decrease with time or does it increase with time? Or does it remain constant? How can you ensure that there is consistency in your self worth? Surely it differs, right, from time to time.
It depends upon your situation, mental state, the kind of environment you are in. Uh,
Yeah.
it's not consistent if you are not working on yourself. If you are
Mm.
continuously working on your growth, if you are continuously work, see, self-worth as human beings, our self-worth has been defined by Allah Ta'ala.
Yeah.
If I give a reference of Surah Teen, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا
Mm.
الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, right? So when Allah Ta'ala has said that you are worthy, you are the, you are created you are the best of the creation. You're
Yes.
created in the best composure, right? So if He has said it, who else has the audacity to cripple yourself for? No
Yeah.
one, right?
Definitely.
But there
Yeah.
are certain situations in life and certain traumas in life as a
Mm.
child, as an adult, as we grow, we perceive reality from a lens that is crippled.
True.
For example, uh, for example, a child who has been emotionally neglected
Yeah.
in his childhood, in his formative years, right? When he badly needed the attention or the love or the compassion or care of the caregiver, if
Yeah.
that child has not been provided with that, he will
Hmm.
start feeling unloved,
Yeah.
unappreciated. He won't be the sense of belonging. He won't be having that. So
Mm.
if the child from these formative years when he's his brain is working, making all those neural connections and these beliefs are being formed at that
Yeah.
tender age when the child is learning that I am not lovable,
Hmm.
I'm not appreciated. Now
Yeah.
the rest of his life, adult life,
Yeah.
will unconsciously, if he's not conscious to revisit his history, if his adult life would work on these beliefs. So now he's wearing a lens wherein which
Hmm.
says that you are not lovable, or you're not good enough, or you won't be attended to. So that would form his reality, and that would go consistently throughout his life if he's not working on himself.
And
And
that
for,
would also
for working
impact
on yourself.
the
Mhm.
person's personality for the rest of um, his or her life. And when it comes to forming healthy relationships with other people, um, say for example in the education setting or workplace or public space, this is going to reflect on everything.
Exactly. Very good point, Varisa. It definitely would reflect if he's not consciously asking these two questions
Hmm.
that I always say. Why
Yeah.
you act, why you feel the way you do, and why you act the way you do. These are the two questions uh, that would make you dive into yourself. If you're not asking these questions on a regular basis, then you are living an unconscious life. Because whatever you are doing it as a robot, a conditioned
Hmm.
robot that has been programmed in at some point of time, and that continuous algorithm is playing in different situations and under different circumstances, play different roles, different people playing different roles, but the same history is going to repeat again and again. The same patterns would repeat again and again because you are not conscious about, you are seeing from a lens, a
Hmm.
tripled lens back in time, and you are stuck in that time for the rest of
Yeah.
your life.
You're not going to progress.
And
You're
the
not going.
relationships issues, yeah, and the wonderful point that you mentioned about relationships, whatever relationships from that point on you will form, you will see from that triple lens. I'll be
Hmm.
ignored, I'm unlovable, I won't be appreciated. And when these thoughts go in your mind, you are actually creating your reality.
Wow.
Because that
That's.
is what going to be, that would be created because of your perceptions.
Hmm.
Until and unless you go within yourself and let yourself know that I am worthy because my creator has told me that I'm worthy, and all the other creations have been subjugated for me.
Yes.
So if
Yes.
if I understand my worth, if I am existing, if I am in this world,
Hmm.
I must be something very important, right?
Yeah. These are really powerful points that you mentioned, Humera, and it's gonna shape your entire perspective on life, your attitude towards your own self, attitude towards other people. It will create self doubt, maybe imposter syndrome. God knows. I mean, these two questions that you gave us as examples to ask on a regular basis. Why do I feel like this? That's like keeping your emotions and your sentiments in check and asking yourself, why do I think like this? That's like keeping your thoughts in check. And that is a very powerful example that you gave. And I think this is quite similar to, the whole concept of tadabbur and tafakkur and muhasibah that Islam tells you to do on a regular basis.
Exactly.
In fact, it's so regular that before going to bed, you're supposed to ask these key questions to yourself every single day, just so that you practice self discipline through all this, isn't it?
Exactly. Unfortunately, these the muhasaba, the tadabbur, the tafakkur, and the zikr, they have
Mm,
these things have gone into oblivion in the sense that they have become mere rituals. You know,
yeah.
ये इतनी दफा ये करना है, इतना करना है,
Mm.
you know,
Get it over
जिक्र
and done
करना
with.
है, but you don't have that essence of it. बस करना है, क्यों करना है? What are you getting out of it? You don't know it.
Mm,
Unless it you don't know the purpose of it, you are not well connected to the ritual, right?
mm,
So it is with our conscious effort. Like, what is zikr? These are
mm.
zikr is a positive affirmation, right? So
Of
unless you
course.
are not doing it with all your consciousness, uh, if you're not conscious about it, your consciousness is
Mm,
absent, and you're just saying words which are not penetrating in. How are you going? How are is it going to affect your soul? Your presence, your mindfulness is so much important in each and
mm.
every step. Like even when we do wudu, it's like it should be a mindful act. It's not just a
Definitely.
ritual to wash your body parts. Your presence, your mindfulness is so very important. Just like purification of the body when you
Mm,
meditate or when you pray, when you do zikr, it's the purification of the mind that's happening. And for
definitely.
that, you need to be conscious about it.
I think this is the beauty of our faith. If you look at every single thing that has been made obligatory or has been highly recommended, it has some benefit on our for our mental health, for our well-being, for our body, and for our spirituality. But it's a shame that most of us neglect that important aspect. Like this beautiful example you gave just now of doing wuzu. Something as simple as that we do 5 times a day, every single day, but how many people do it consciously? How many people actually
Exactly.
do it in a mindful way? When they hold that water in their hand and reflect on it, and why they're washing their hand, why they're washing their face. Yeah.
Just one example of which is like in our daily routine to say Bismillah starting any work? Why do you
Yeah.
think it is? It's the best practice to be mindful,
Mm.
bringing all your attention to the work that you are doing. So starting with Bismillah Rahmanir Rahim means you are not on autopilot. You are bringing your attention into, but today we live in a very chaotic world where, we are eating, there is a screen, there is so many distractions that we are so overstimulated and
Mm.
we are distracted. So in this world, these rituals or these essence should come back in their true form.
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about self acceptance. Talk to us more about that because I know it's all linked: self worth, self acceptance, self love. That's another thing.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. See, self acceptance is to accept yourself, all the good and ugly parts about you, all the
Mm.
good and bad. The thing is that when we are in self denial, we are
Yeah.
not accepting those parts of ourselves, those parts of our history or of our lives that bring uncomfortable emotions. What do I mean
Right.
by uncomfortable emotions? That bring guilt, that bring shame, that bring frustration. Nobody
Mm.
likes to feel those emotions, right? So why would
Yeah.
I go back in time and recall those memories that are going to bring shame to me or they will bring guilt to me? We all want to feel good, and to feel good, we do so many things, right? So why would one want to feel bad? But
Mm.
unless you do not feel those emotions, then accept yourself as a human being who can err, who can make mistakes, because we are not perfect. So when we accept, the, this is called the shadow self, the self that you're hiding, the self that wants to come and shine out. For example, let's say if you have been bullied a lot,
Mm.
maybe you have very good leadership skills, but somebody out of insecurity or in childhood you have been bullied for bossing around, let's say, for controlling. Maybe it comes from some situation in your life that you might have displayed that control because of lack of trust, maybe. But giving yourself, someone defining you as in a negative light, let's say being a coaxer, a
Mm.
person, you just replace those words with being an influencer rather than coaxer, or being a leader rather than boss,
Mm.
or being expressive rather than emotional. So
Yeah.
these words matter. And
Mm.
when getting back to the topic of shadow self, let's say if your inner critic or the voices in your head, maybe coming from external sources that you have heard so many times, are telling you that, let's say, you are bossy, you are bossy, you are bossy,
Mm.
this will make your shadow self hide. Maybe you have very good leadership skills, but they won't come out because you are telling yourself that you are not up to that mark, or you
Mm.
are not. So, which means that your true self, which is an entirety of your whole self, is not visible, not even to yourself. And that is called self denial, not accepting yourself the way
That
you
is.
are with all your
Yeah.
flaws and all your
When you
goods.
say, when you say the shadow self tends to, it's the self that hides. Is it something that hides from you or from the rest of the world, or both?
See, the shadow self basically hides from you. The rest of the world, it can, but it it gets apparent by the triggers that you get from the outside world. So your shadow self can is under the cover. People might not
Mm.
know it. Yes, it's not visible to others unless you shed light to it. But you
Hmm.
will get triggers from the environment around telling you that there's something buried inside. Take it out because
Right.
that's what you are.
So you kind of cover the sun of your existence with a dark cloud yourself, not allowing it to shine and brighten other people's lives or brighten your own self. It's like self-imposed, whether
Yeah,
criticism,
it's
call
self
it, or
sabotaging yourself because as a soul, we all have been given a purpose, right?
definitely.
And we have, in order to achieve that purpose, we have to reach a certain potential. And it can only be reached unless you are your true self, unless
Hmm.
you are hiding behind, as you say, behind the clouds, you're not
Yeah.
accepting yourself. Those are the parts that are needed for you to achieve your purpose. And if they
Yeah.
are not to light, not in the light, you won't be able to achieve your purpose.
So you're kind of your biggest enemy because of the self-doubt and
Yeah,
sabotaging attitude.
self-sabotaging yourself, yeah.
And I understand what you're saying, that it can stem from early years or childhood years when your caregivers or the environment you were raised in, they were quite highly critical, or they used maybe some harsh form of discipline. So it can be a combination of multiple things, or maybe neglect or avoidance, God knows. And all of these things are going to um, form your judgment about your own self. So even if you have the skills and abilities to do something, in your head, you will be getting negative thoughts and you will be using negative language that no, I can't do it, or I'll embarrass myself, or I'm going to make a complete fool out of myself. And then that prohibits you from actually doing the task or what you're supposed to.
Exactly, exactly. And as you mentioned about the experiences, maybe you have experiences, negative experiences with people in life, in relationships,
Yeah.
wherein if you have the potential and you have achieved something, people people can get jealous. People can
Mm,
become insecure. They have their
of
own
course.
fears and insecurities, which they can project onto you, right? And they can
Mm,
bully you for shining out, for shining to your true potential, right? And they
yeah.
can use words to demoralize you, right? And maybe in that process, you might lose your friendships or your
Mm,
relationships. And that fear might hold you back from coming out because you
yes.
know that if because of your past experience you know that you got a particular grade or you topped and then you lost your friend who was competitive to you, so you would
Mm,
fear next time achieving things because that's what happened in your history. And if you are not working on yourself and reliving you're living from that lens the rest of your life, you'll always think that if I achieve my potential or if I achieve things or if I shine bright, I will lose the relationships that I have because I
yeah.
lost my best friend.
Yeah. That's a very good example that you gave, that how negative experiences or negative relationships can also affect your
Mhm.
perception towards your own self and forming new relationships. Just to remind our viewers who are watching this program right now, this is a live call in show. So if you have any questions or comments or feedback or any experience that you would like to share with Humaira, please feel free to call in our studio number, which is shown on the screen. And you can also leave feedback, comments, or share your questions on our Hidayat TV's Facebook page or YouTube channel. So, coming back to you, Humaira, you spoke about self-sabotaging behavior. You spoke about self-acceptance, self-worth. What about self-love? This is something you see particularly in our South Asian community that most people struggle with. At least the clients that I see, I know the first thing they come up with is that self-care is selfish or self-love is selfish, which is not the case. And I know you have written this amazing book on self discovery and self help, and it's targeted for the South Asian population, which is quite rare because most of the self help books that are available out there, they are targeted at a specific culture or audience or ethnic group. But mashallah, you've done a fantastic job in writing something that caters the needs of our community. Tell us about that.
Yes, where he said that this was an attempt writing the book, feeling the need that our community or the South Asian region needs this kind of book as a self-help book. Because when we read books, self-help books from other cultures, they are not relevant to our values, right? With our collectivist culture, it's not relevant. We do not find examples there that could help us. So I wrote this book especially for the South Asian region, so that they can when they read, they can relate with it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
what you're talking about self-love, I completely agree that, we lack self-love because we
Mm.
think that it is selfish. And I think because it's our collectivist culture, the demands of the collectivist culture has made us fall into this trap of labeling it as selfish, because um, we in our history have gone through a lot of you know traumas as a
Mm.
whole, that what
Yeah.
I call intergenerational trauma.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
because of that, maybe we have given wrong meanings to words, where
Mm.
if someone is having a boundary, we think maybe he's arrogant or
Yes.
self-centered. However, However, if you don't have a boundary, this is one of the chapter in my book by the name of leaky boundaries. Like if your boundaries are not healthy, you are going to be abused badly. Either you will
Mm.
be abusing others because of your very rigid and hard persona, or you
Yeah.
will be like a doormat to other people's needs and desires, a
Yeah.
people pleaser. So having a boundary in its right place is so very important. But if you
Yeah.
talk to our people about boundaries, they'll say, "Oh, that's so selfish. How can I say no? That I cannot do. Why can't you say no?" And just reflect on this, that the people who get offensive
Yeah.
for people saying no to them find difficult to say no to others. People
Yeah.
who find difficult to say no to others feel offended when others say no to them, because they associate rejection with a no, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's
We do
practically
not
non-existent. This whole concept is practically non-existent. And like you said, that it's the way it's perceived. The words, self-love is not being selfish. It's just like when you love someone else, a family member or a friend or a neighbor, then you look after them. You ensure that they're taken care of, that nothing harms or hurts them. They get good, nutritional food, or they are warm when it's cold, or comfortable when it's hot. It's like looking after the basic needs, and which is something which is a divinely granted right. So when you're giving it to someone else, that unconditional love, what is it stopping you from giving it to your own self? And why do we make it sound like it's wrong and it's selfish and no, you shouldn't be doing that?
it comes from the emotion of being made felt guilty about it as a cultural norm. If you
Hmm.
take out time for yourself, you will be labeled in bad words, right? So
Yeah.
the emotion of guilt is associated with self-love. And because of that emotion, you stay back from doing it. Having said so, self-love is not just spa visits or taking your me
Hmm.
time, or it self-love is all about it's not only about this, it's about your mental well-being as well.
Yeah.
Accepting yourself, loving the parts of yourself that you have buried inside, take them
Hmm.
out and foster them, nurture them. Then they are the parts that belong to you. So that if you are going to always be self-critical
Yeah.
about yourself, there would be
Hmm.
this mental chatter always going on, and that's not good for your mental health.
Of course. Yeah.
So, just
Yeah.
as self care is important for your physical body, looking after
Hmm.
yourself, taking breaks at work, going for a vacation, at a physical level, at the mental level, also, these things impact our well being. And if we are not accepting those parts, as I mentioned, those broken parts of you, for that you need to be vulnerable. You need to be open to understand that what parts are broken and what I need to do to forgive myself, to accept my mistakes, to accept what happened, what did not work out, what worked out. It was for the best interest of mine because it was written by the best of the planners.
Definitely. Now, I have a question for you, Humaira. Often we see that guilt stems from not something that we have done, but maybe because of something that someone else has done to us. And we tend to carry that baggage. And if you don't do enough inner work on ourselves at the right time, then we tend to carry that baggage alongside the feelings of emptiness and not feeling fulfilled and accomplished and miserable. And we tend to drag that in from like one generation and we pass it to our children and so on and so forth. So, if you could talk to us about feelings of emptiness that results from these, experiences and how we can achieve fulfillment with ourselves.
Uh, Wonderful. Firstly, I would like to address the emotion of guilt. Every emotion has a purpose, and guilt has a purpose as well. Because if you do not have guilt, then you can go and murder somebody, and you would be like,
Of
it's
course.
okay. So if you don't have that, it's a measurement for your morality, right? Guilt
Mm,
will it will keep you intact, will keep you
yes.
accountable. So it has a purpose. But if you're using that emotion at the wrong place, like in self-care or self-love, that's a
Mm,
misplaced emotion. That's not needed there. And the society plays on it, right?
yes.
Now, coming to fulfillment, it's see, as human beings on this earth, we all have this emptiness and void within
Mm,
us, and it will
yeah.
remain there because we have left our home. That's Jannah. That was the present that we were there in divine presence of God,
Mm,
of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So
yes.
that void and that emptiness while we are on earth will always remain within us. Now, having said so, how can we be how can we feel fulfilled?
Mm,
Now, there are certain ways that we try to feel fulfilled, and that's how we define our self-worth in by partying or by associating ourselves with things that may bring fulfillment or make us feel worthy or you know uh, buying stuff, shopping and endlessly. You will try to fill that void with those things. Having said so, these all things are not something bad. They are a form of instant gratification that you need. It's no harm going on shopping. It's no harm hanging out. It's no
mm,
harm. The balance is important, and these instant gratifications are important so that you taste them to know what reward is for you as a delayed gratification. It's just like when a seller selling a perfume makes you, smell the fragrance. Unless you do
Yeah.
not smell it, you won't you won't buy it, right? So you
Yeah.
need to experience, have a feel of it in order to desire it. So
Mm.
these instant gratifications or these life pleasures, they are not haram, or they are not
Of course.
forbidden. They are
Of
a way for us to desire that fulfillment, or desire that reward that is kept for us in Jannah. So there is no right, wrong, or good or bad in this. But we have to
Mm.
realize, where is the boundary, where is the
Mm.
balance, and wherein are we seeking that void, emptiness within us, with we are going out of balance, or we are seeking it through divine unconditional love for
Mm.
ourselves. If Because
And
that is the only way we can feel fulfilled from inside, filling that void, filling that emptiness. It can only come through us, within us, and by us.
true.
Other from external factors, that emptiness, it is a never ending race. With every high, you will want another high.
Yeah. It can get addictive.
Exactly.
And you see this trend, right? Especially in this day and age, more than ever before, where people are constantly going through their social media feeds just to validate themselves and see how many likes they got and how many people have appreciated the picture they have put up. It's become like a lifestyle, and it has programmed the minds of thousands and thousands of people. And to find contentment and fulfillment with this kind of behavior, I think that's just practically impossible. And to find true contentment is by, I think, building your relationship with yourself and most importantly with your creator. And that's the only way you can feel fulfilled and content and happy. We have 5 minutes remaining, Humera. So if you would like to give us your final message or any piece of advice for our viewers, especially those who are starting this new year with new motivation and enthusiasm to bring a positive change within themselves and to get rid of any form of negativity that they experienced in 2021.
Yes, Farisa, I would like to tell our audience that believe in yourself and don't ever take things personally. Whatever happens in your surroundings has nothing to do with your own self-worth. And keep yourself at a high pedestal, because you are worthy, because your creator has said so. And that's all that matters.
Of course.
That's
And
that's from
people
me,
who are
and a very happy and prosperous new year to everyone.
And what advice would you give to those individuals, Humera, who are really struggling with their self worth and self image, and despite trying, they're unable to love themselves and accept themselves the way they are?
I think the best advice that I can give to them is to sit with themselves, explore themselves, go within, rather than going for external validation, as you mentioned about likes, following, associations, possessions, and titles. These all things are temporary. You will always be running one after another, because that is not the way you will ever be fulfilled. So rather than going into that race, wherein the emptiness will always remain, it's better to connect with yourself. Once you will connect with yourself, you will connect with the creator as well. Sit
Of
with
course.
yourself. Ask yourself these two questions. I'll repeat again.
Yeah.
Why you act the way you do, why you feel the way you do. In every action, whatever negativity you are experiencing, ask yourself, what is it that's bothering me? What is it that's that's tr- that's triggering me? What's happening inside me? Rather than taking things personally, oh, you don't know what others are going through. It's not
Yeah.
all about you. They must be going through a bad situation themselves. So always
True.
give others the benefit of doubt so that you just shoo away the negativity coming from all around and sit with yourself and shine in your own light.
That's a beautiful, beautiful piece of advice that you've given. Jazakumullah khairan, Humaira. And like you said, sit with yourself, which means spend time alone in solitude and reflect. Reflect on your thoughts, reflect on your behavior, reflect on your actions, because that's the only way you can create change within yourself. And don't be scared of coming out of your comfort zone, because most transformations happen when you go through something painful. Humaira Nasim, thank you
Sure.
so much for taking the time out for Hidayat TV. Your advice and your tips that you gave us today, and this whole conversation, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure our viewers enjoyed it as much as I did. To our wonderful viewers, if you have any questions you would like to ask Humaira directly, our fantastic life coach, please feel free to call in our studio and we will be able to connect you with her, inshallah. Next Saturday, we're going to meet you again with another guest and a new topic related to your psychological well being. Till then, look after your mental health and the mental health of those around you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.